raised a Hindu, and in my 30s, I kind of discovered the philosophy and the spiritual traditions, and have been delving into it for the last 10, 15 years. I live in San Francisco City. I love these types of engagements with different traditions. So before I start, in the Hindu tradition, we have this tradition of reciting a prayer before we start any kind of learning activity. And basically the prayer is as follows. I'm going to say it in Sanskrit and I'll give you a quick English translation. But it's Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam, Karvavahai, Tejas Vinavaditamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai, Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Basically, what you're doing in this prayer is seek the blessings of the divine to protect you as part of the learning endeavor, and you are seeking the ability to be inspired by these teachings, and you want to make sure that you don't get stuck in some unproductive debates, and you close out with a chant for peace. So with that little prayer, I will start on the topic of the different attributes of God. So we have these two terms, keywords in this topic, God and attributes. So for the purposes of this topic, I'm going to take the most holistic vision of God in the Hindu tradition. And the word for that in Sanskrit is Brahman. And I don't know how many of you have heard of that word. Raise your hands. So that's great. So Brahman is the ultimate reality, the word for God. And then the other word, attributes, is Guna. So that's the other word that we're going to be using a lot in today's conversation. And so Brahman is the ultimate reality, and Brahman is everything, right? So we are all part of Brahman. So as I talk about attributes of the divine, of the attributes of the Brahman, there are a couple of things that I would encourage you to relate to what I'm going to say in a better way. So one key saying in the Hindu tradition is Tattvamasi, which means you are that, right? And there is also another Sanskrit phrase called Aham Brahmasmi, which is I am the divine. So the attributes of the divine that we are going to be talking about today are also present inside you. So this is an opportunity for you to explore within yourselves and understand these divine attributes that are within ourselves, right? So, and the other thing is, everything is the divine. So everything that you see around you is part of the divine and is also, and therefore, divine qualities in some sense, right? Like it's not just compartmentalizing specific things. So I'll start with Brahman, and Brahman, the God, has two modes of being. The first is called Nirguna Brahman, and the second is Saguna Brahman. So Guna is attribute, and Nirgun means without attributes. So that's one mode of being, so that's Nirguna Brahman. And Saguna Brahman is Brahman who has attributes, right? So the ultimate reality is Brahman, and Brahman resides in these two forms, or I should say these two modes of being. And the Nirguna Brahman has three essential qualities, if you will. And again, because God is sort of like beyond our perception, He's obviously beyond the grasp of language per se. But the Sanskrit terms that have been used to describe the Nirguna Brahman, there are three key words: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So Sat is truth, Chit is consciousness, and Ananda is bliss. So the Nirguna Brahman, in that mode of being, God has those three attributes. That's purity, nothing else. And it's the closest that words can come to describing that is Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Now, shifting gears to looking at Saguna Brahman, this is the Brahman with attributes. The attributes of that Brahman are infinite. So, in the Hindu tradition, we have taken an approach of cataloging the most important attributes, right? So, of the Saguna Brahman. So, First and foremost, for Sagun Brahman, the way he's expressed, there are two aspects to it, Purusha and Prakriti. So Purusha is latent energy and Prakriti is matter. So, right? So everything that you see in the manifest world is a combination of energy and matter. So that's Purusha and Prakriti. And this Saguna Brahman, there are three fundamental processes. So if you look at this divine, and there are infinite attributes to this Saguna Brahman, let's focus on what are the three most fundamental, and let's start. And when we say fundamental, what's most relevant to us as humans as we experience the divine? What are the three fundamental processes that we experience and that we are under the influence of? And those three processes are creationary process, the process of sustenance, and the process of destruction. That those three fundamental processes are happening in the macrocosm, they're happening in the microcosm. And so we are under the influence of those three forces. So we have deified those three forces, created anthropomorphic forms for those three processes. So creation is depicted through Brahma, is the name of the god who represents, who's the symbolic of the creationary process, and sustenance is Vishnu, and destruction is Shiva. So you probably have heard these names of gods, and these three fundamental processes, the interplay of these processes which constitute the cosmos, those are three fundamental aspects of God from a process standpoint. And then there are three other forces that are fundamental to these processes, and so they are symbolized as consorts of these gods in the Hindu tradition. So Brahma's consort is Saraswati. She's the goddess of learning and knowledge, and so it's fundamental to creation and creative processes. And then Lakshmi is the consort of Vishnu. So Lakshmi represents prosperity, and again we have further cataloged prosperity into multiple types. So if you think of these are again attributes of God. So there is Lakshmi there is material wealth, there is wisdom, there's the wealth of wisdom, there is the wealth of progeny, there is the wealth of courage. So there are like at least 8 different types of prosperity that are important to us, and so those attributes of God have again been personified as Lakshmi, the goddess, and then sub-forms of Lakshmi. And then the third is Shakti, who's the consort of Shiva. So if Purusha is the latent energy, Shakti is that energy, is an energy in motion. So these three fundamental processes and their associated sub-processes, those are fundamental aspects of God that are relevant to us. Beyond that, how we look at the aspects of God, we are talking about forces like, within us, what's most important to us that we need to invoke? It's our willpower. So Ganesha symbolizes willpower, right? So there are other attributes that are relevant to us that we have deified and worship them as gods. The next aspect that I want to touch on is this view of Nirgun Brahman and Sagun Brahman. It can be a little bit abstract, and so there is actually a very vivid imagery that's given in the Bhagavad Gita that helps explain this concept of Nirgun Brahman and Sagun Brahman. And that description is that of an inverted tree out in the sky. So if you want to imagine for a second an inverted tree with its roots beyond on the other side of the sky, and the trunk and the branches, that the Nirgun Brahman is basically the roots of that tree, and the Sagun Brahman is the trunk and the branches and the leaves of that tree, and we are all essentially the leaves of that tree, right? So how does this matter? So when it comes to Brahman, you have all these concepts in the manifest world, and we basically, as we go through our human lives, the evolutionary process, we go from one birth to the other. These forces like, the creationary, sustenance, destructive forces, there is wealth, there is knowledge, there is willpower, all these things influence our lives. But there is also the material aspect of it. So we have the 5 elements, right? So you have the fire, which is represented by Agni. There is wind that's represented by Vayu. there is water that's represented by Varuna, and then earth by Prithvi, and then Akasha is space, right? So those are like the material aspects of God, material attributes of God. So those are again fundamental, and that's one of the reasons, or reasons that they are also treated as gods and we worship them. So while there are infinite attributes of God, these are some of the fundamental aspects of God. Now, the last piece that I want to bring it all together is, as humans, while these are our qualities in a certain plane, on a higher plane, there are three gunas that we are all part of, right? And these are more the abstract qualities that make us. And those three abstract qualities that we are all a mixture of are sattva, or the mode of goodness. Then there is rajasic, which is the mode of passion, and tamas, which is the mode of darkness. So we all have these three qualities intermixed in us, and then the goal of human life is to transcend these three qualities and then attain moksha or nirvana in the Buddhist tradition, right? So that go beyond these qualities and become that Sat Chit Ananda, that pure state of Nirgun Brahman. That is the ultimate goal that we are all on the path to achieving. And the path to achieving it is, we start lowering the amounts of tamas and the rajas inside us, and that's kind of like the recipe or the roadmap that has been given in the Hindu tradition is, reduce your tamasic energy, reduce your rajasic energy, and you do that from everything, like the activities, the way you think, what you eat, all these things, and the way you speak, everything that you do basically can contribute to altering that mix of sattva, rajas, and tamas inside you. And as you become more and more sattvic, you get close to a point where you are able to now realize that Satchitananda state, and that's the ultimate goal of the tradition. And now you become one with God and you realize all his qualities at that point. So, thank you.